Welcome. We're about to break down the complex web of pressures facing India today. We're talking about everything from a deeply fractured parliament and major shocks to the global economy, all the way to a planet in crisis. It's a nation truly at a crossroads.
All right, so here's our game plan. We'll start inside Parliament with the political divisions. Then we'll zoom out to the global economic forces hitting India. After that, we pivot to some really critical social debates, widen the lens to the climate crisis, and finally, bring it all home to the big democratic test that's right around the corner. So, our story kicks off inside the Lok Sabha, India's lower house of parliament. And, recent events there have shown a political system that is under some serious strain.
This quote, well, it really just says it all, doesn't it? There was this incredibly hostile debate over a move to remove the speaker, and it just laid bare these deep partisan cracks between the government and the opposition. It turned what should be a forum for accountability into, well, another political battlefield.
Now this is where it gets really interesting, because you basically have two completely different realities being presented. On one side, you've got the opposition saying, hey, we're being silenced, pointing to things like their mics being switched off or being blocked from talking about key issues. But then on the other side, the government comes back with its own set of data arguing, no, the opposition gets plenty of time, especially during 0 hour, which is that key period for raising urgent issues. It's this fundamental disagreement about how democracy itself is functioning.
Okay, so while all of that is simmering internally, you've got these powerful forces from the outside that are really starting to turn up the economic heat on India.
$118. Following the war in West Asia, that's how high the price of Brent crude oil shot up. I mean, to put that into perspective, that's more than a 100% jump since the middle of December 2025, a huge spike.
And you have to understand, for a major energy importer like India, this is so much more than just a number on a screen. This kind of volatility strikes right at the heart of the country's energy security. It affects everything from inflation all the way down to the budget of every single family.
And if that wasn't enough, there's another major storm brewing on the trade front. The United States is dusting off a powerful and pretty controversial tool called Section 301. Basically, it lets the U.S. single-handedly investigate and punish other countries for trade practices it decides are unfair.
This picture really captures the situation perfectly. The U.S. has kicked off two brand new investigations using Section 301, and they're targeting a whole range of trading partners, including India. This could be a whole new chapter in the global trade wars.
So what are these investigations actually about? Well, the first one claims India is using its extra manufacturing power in big sectors like textiles and steel to unfairly flood the U.S. market. The second one is looking into whether India is doing enough to stop goods made with forced labor. Either of these could lead to some really damaging new tariffs, which creates a ton of uncertainty for Indian exporters.
All right, so we've talked politics and global economics. Now let's pivot to something much more personal and ethical. Because when a country feels the heat like this, it often forces some deep conversations about core values. And these debates, they touch the very fabric of society.
This is the fundamental, incredibly profound question that was at the center of a recent landmark Supreme Court ruling. It's about one of the most difficult decisions any person or family can ever face.
Just look at the legal journey here. It's really remarkable. Back in 1996, the Supreme Court said there was no right to die. But over the years, the thinking has clearly evolved. And it all culminated in this recent Rana case, where for the very first time, the court allowed a feeding tube to be withdrawn, saying it was a form of medical treatment. It was a powerful affirmation of the right to die with dignity.
And at the same time, the court was tackling another incredibly complex issue. Should menstrual leave be mandatory? As you can see, the arguments are really finely balanced. On one side, you have advocates saying it's just a necessary policy that acknowledges a real health issue. But on the other, there's a real fear that it could backfire, that it might actually make companies less likely to hire women or reinforce old stereotypes.
So, while India is grappling with all these immediate political and social pressures, there's this even larger, long-term crisis that's making itself felt in some pretty dramatic and dangerous ways.
And we're not talking about something abstract in the distant future. The planet is sending some very clear and very dangerous signals right now. For example, a study of that devastating flash flood in Uttarakhand back in 2025 found it was triggered by an ice patch collapsing on a glacier. Scientists are now saying these exposed patches are basically giant, visible warning signs of catastrophic floods to come.
So how is the world responding? Well, at the huge COP30 climate conference, it really all came down to one thing: water. These new goals, the BLIM adaptation indicators, they're not just suggestions, they're a roadmap for survival. And they are pushing nations like India to put water resilience, everything from early warning systems to clean drinking water, at the absolute center of their entire development strategy.
So you put it all together, the political fights, the economic shocks, the deep social debates, the urgent climate warnings, and it all leads to this: an immediate test of the country's democratic process.
That's right, it's election season. Polls have been announced for April across these 5 really crucial states and territories, and we're expecting the results on May 4th. This is going to be a pivotal moment where regional parties face off against national ones for political dominance.
And each of these contests has its own unique story, its own high stakes. In a state like Kerala, for example, the results are going to be seen as a bellwether, a real sign of the national mood and the ongoing debates around the relationship between the central government and the states.
Which leaves us right here with this one huge critical question. As India tries to navigate this intense pressure cooker of challenges, the choices that are made right now in Parliament, in the courts, in trade talks, and of course at the ballot box are going to be the choices that define its future. The stakes just could not be higher.